Hey everybody, we are finally at the last piece of this learning cycle where we're designing a learning activity or basically a lesson plan against the standard that you chose earlier in the week. I'm going to do this video on this Google document, and this will also be that has similar content, which is in the forum. So let's start over here and just talk about some of the expectations for your learning activity or this lesson plan. So there's certain things that we need to make sure are in our activity or lesson plan. You need to make sure you include the philosophy in the forum, your essential elements, and this part, number 3, which I'll talk about in greater detail. You need to make sure that this learning activity is practice towards the assessment, that it's not necessarily the assessment you made in the beginning of the week. Rather, this is a separate learning activity that will help students build towards that assessment. Okay, you'll also need to indicate what grade level this is for, so you make sure that it's age level appropriate. You'll also go back to the MA frameworks and decide on a practice or a guiding principle that aligns with your learning activity. All right, so you will create your lesson plan on some type of shareable document. I mean, I like Google Docs, but I don't want to make you choose that if you think something else is better for you. I provided templates at the bottom. You can see them down here, but you can design your own as well. So I made the constraints a little bit less this week. What I noticed is that a lot of people did a very similar thing to what I had posted here. I said, you have to have an introduction or a hook, or you have to apply it, you have to share it. But I want to give you a little bit more flexibility so you can be as creative as possible for what this learning activity is going to be. It doesn't have to be the only learning activity that helps students build towards this standard, but one learning activity that you think will be powerful to help students build towards the assessment and the standard that you chose. So your design constraint is really just have a beginning. Oh, I should put some commas in here, a middle, and an end. So you have a lot more flexibility with this learning activity. I did give some extra links here about finding lesson ideas. You might be able to go back to the content exploration or any mentors you found on Twitter or just any other resources you found in general as you've been exploring the internet. Now, I'm a little biased these days towards 3-act math lessons. I believe that they're a really amazing way to engage students and get them to really think about math and talk about math instead of just talking about here's a vocabulary, here's what to do. This is a way to really apply the math before they even learn the concepts or the procedures. So it really can hook them in really well. Kyle Pierce has a ton of really good ones. You could go back to Dan Meyer's blog. He has a ton of really good ones. Here's a lot of really good ones for younger age groups. I've given some ideas there. And I even gave some examples of hyperdocs that people made. I even put down here a template that you could use for a 3-act math lesson. But, of course, I want to let your creativity run wild, and you could create any kind of learning activity as you'd like. So you could use the basic HikerDoc template, your workshop model template, or any other template that you feel best will create a learning activity against your standard that will lead towards your assessment. I also have a lot of HyperDoc math lessons here. Here's a first grade one where they gave a whole bunch of good ones for elementary school, so that's awesome. And then let's stop talking about 3-act math. Let's stop talking about HyperDocs. You could just click here. There's a ton of really great resources about mathematics and teaching and learning it. Hopefully you can come up with something really great with all these different resources and the thinking that you've been doing the past 2 weeks. All right, so then I gave a little bit more instructions as well to make sure that it's clear that the first thing you have to do is post in the forum these different things here. And then your task is to actually create the lesson outside of the forum, because you will attach that learning, did I say assessment? That learning activity to this form. And then the third task is to give feedback to 2 other members of the class. And then once you've gotten those feedback from those two other members. You should receive emails that. So I really can't wait to find out what kind of learning activities that we're going to be able to create based on all the content exploration we did last week, you developing your philosophy, making that philosophy come alive, learning from other mentors around the internet, and really starting to think about if I have an authentic assessment and I know I want to build students towards being successful in that assessment, what's a different learning activity that I can have students do so that they can best be successful in that assessment? So don't forget, it's a separate experience. It's something that will teach the students the basic skills, or teach the students a hook into what it is, or it might teach them some type of a conceptual understanding, or it might be a different application of the standard. And then in the assessment, there'll be a new application and they can see if they can transfer that learning into the assessment. So let's see how we can design these learning activities to really get students to feel good about math, learn the math, the best way that we feel like we can have them do it. Can't wait to see what you all come up with. Have an awesome day.